everybody. We're back again today, and we have another business expert with us today to give us some really good advice. Today we have Fergus Doyle, and Fergus is the Managing Director of the Business Troubleshooters. The Business Troubleshooters are an organisation that are set up to help owner managers, guys who own businesses, to troubleshoot and to fix problems within their businesses. Now, I'm so happy we have Fergus here today because businesses have a whole new level of problems and issues at the moment, and because of this whole COVID-19, it's all about what are they doing right now, how are they going to plan into the future, and Fergus has got some really good inspirational information for us all today. Hello Fergus, how are you keeping?
Not too bad. How are you?
Good. I'm keeping good.
Yeah.
Sure. What else did you be doing on a Monday morning other than have a video chat, eh? I think we're all at that now. All right. So I did a brief introduction to yourself, Fergus, there off the Zoom call, right? But I suppose I'd really like to, for you to tell the audience who you are and tell us a little bit about your organisation.
Sure. Well, I'm Fergus Doyle. I'm the Managing Director of a company called the Business Troubleshooters. We started in 2009. We're in our 11th year. Started at the beginning of the last recession. I work with owner-managed businesses, essentially identifying and eliminating different trouble that might be in their organisation, in their business, in their model, that kind of thing. And there's 5 of us in the business, and we've been at it now 11 years.
Wow. So lots of experience, particularly with starting a business during the start of a recession, I suppose. So, I mean, just very quickly, how did you end up starting a business at the start of a recession? Was it something you identified, or what was it?
Out of need, really. I got caught being laid off. I used to do turnarounds and restructuring for multinational kind of organizations in the technology game. And in 2009, I got caught in a layoff. I was thinking of doing something for myself at the time, and knew there was a lot of need. Like our target audience is owner-managed businesses, manufacturing, distribution, up to about 30, 35 people. And I knew there was a lot of need for help. So, practical help and intervention, not just academic kind of wise words. And I came up with the brand that Business Troubleshooters, and that's what we do, is we troubleshoot businesses. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. When we decided we wanted to do these video chats with different experts from different fields, and we were ticking off a couple of different boxes, and when we rang you to say, Fergus, what would you like to talk about, right? I suppose I had in my mind, you might be, with some of the topics that are going on at the moment are, cash flow, accountancy, staff, all these different things. And I said to you, Fergus, what sort of subject would you like to talk about? You didn't even think about it. You just came straight back to me and said survival, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, whoa, that's survival. It's a bit of a scary word. But I suppose we're all in survival mode at the moment to some degree. And, why did you pick that topic? And can you tell us more about this and what it means to you?
Yeah, look, I suppose we built a business in a recessionary time. So, businesses were closing, they were rationalizing, they were, reshaping what they did. That was 10, 11 years ago. And this is what we do. So we quite early on, probably before, maybe not before, but right at the beginning where things we realized were going to change here very quickly and very dramatically. The last 2 weeks for the owner, manager, our customer who we've been in contact with all the time through this is, how do we come out of this? Like it's how do you plan? It's not gradual. The last recession probably took 12 months to bite, maybe 18 months. This took 10 days. And in that kind of free fall, time is the enemy. And then what we don't know about this is how long it's going to last. In relative terms, we know, but it's what is left at the end to come back out. And that's why I said survival here. We've been working with folks, putting together restructuring plans, and it's okay. How long do we think this is going to last? So we take a piece of data. No one, 12 12 weeks, 3 months on the short end, and then you're going to pull out of some kind of recession, out of a recessionary period. You enter into that then. And we said, okay, well, the lifeboat's got to survive. You've got to have the
I think we've frozen there a little bit. Can you hear me?
Take a hole in the water. Yeah, I can. Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah,
Is that still good for you? Okay.
Yeah. So
sorry,
the lifeboat. We were at the lifeboat.
Yeah. Right.
So tell us about the lifeboat.
Yeah. So if the lifeboat takes a hole under the waterline, it's going down. You can't afford to do that. So it's going to feed everyone on the way back. So it's got to come out. So then the plans that we've been putting in place are, what does survival look like? And then from the survival, those other bits, which, be it cash flow or whatever, those are the oxygen that makes this happen. But there's also the opportunity now to go, okay, well, how do you want your business to look different when it does come out of that survival period? But that's what I ultimately was talking about, is size your business right to come out the other end of it. And then when you come out the other end of it, be better than you entered. Because a lot of the feedback we got, we run a daily call at 5 o'clock for our customers and other owner managers to listen in, is you're going to plan great. What was I doing that we shouldn't be doing anymore? Because people would have told us, owners have said, God, I never got around to doing this thing. I never got around to doing that thing. We were doing things such a way, we need to change them again. So this is a great opportunity to reshape how you do what you do. And the world has changed from the business side of things. We're not going to go back to where we were. There's going to be things like remote working that people say, it was a nice to have, is no longer a nice to have. It's going to be an essential way of doing business. The customer purchase is a very different way now than when they come back than they did before they went into this. So how then do you change your business so it comes out not lean and mean in that cliched sense, but actually what can you do now to serve your customer's need? So when the light switch goes back on, you're back in and you're running hard.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was listening to a podcast on Saturday. It was a Saturday morning business show with Bobby Kerr, and he had a guy on. I can't remember his name, but we'll dig it out and we'll share the podcast. But he had worked on the front line with the United Nations, he talked about when the army tanks moved out of these war-torn areas, that the economy would just literally, as the army tanks were moving down the street, people would come out and start selling oranges on the street. That the bounce back is always it happens very quickly. Yeah. But he was basically saying it's like all your Christmas is coming at once, and then there's a bit of a drop off. And you mentioned, keeping the lifeboat afloat, right sizing your business. There's all sorts of numbers being thrown around at the moment by the government about the downturn in the economy. But what does that mean for, how does somebody who owns a small business, maybe, 5 to 10 staff or 10 to 20 staff, how do they figure out what their turnover is going to be? I know we're all in the middle of it now, but how do you work that out, or what's the, what would be your wisdom to people about that?
Well, look, there's businesses that have had their income completely turned off. So if you were a coffee shop, bar, restaurant, went from whatever it was to zero. It's difficult initially to predict how there is going to be a turn on. And I listened to the same radio show, and indeed that guy talking about this. People will come out and start spending their money. What will it turn back on to? No one really knows, but you got to think it's going to be half what it was. That's kind of the number. And that might be dramatic. For some people, oh Christ, I'm coming back from zero to half what I was. From others, they're coming down from 100% to 50%. But that's, you might say that's hedging a bet as well. Well, I know it's not 80%, and I know it's not 20%. So when it comes out, and the same podcast you listen to and I listen to, the guy says you got to be ready. So a supply chain that gets shut down for 3 months, if you turn that puppet back on, so if your warehouse is full of goods, there's a 3-month lag coming at some point. There's cash required for that. Yeah. And a lot of owners, Friday last week, we were doing this sort of wrap-up calls with our customers, and they were days, like they were just caught, like they saw their whole, business imploding around them. And we're somewhat just paralyzed, but did things. I think this week it's now, okay, what the hell do we do? And that's definitely the vein of our conversations we're having at 5 o'clock each evening, is to go, right, okay, you have opportunity now. What would you do? So prepare for 50% coming back on. Certain customers we're talking to, we're saying, look, get funding, get short-term cash flow funding, because when you turn back on, you're going to have to cut checks to fill the supply chain again. And there's some great schemes out there. SBCI is an example where you can get funding just to be able to cut the check. Because all of us will have had cash flow hit here. And if business turns on to 50% and you've downsized your business to a certain size, you won't have the money to the cash flow is going to take probably 4, 6, 8 weeks to start coming back into your business. So those things that allow you do more when you come back on. So I'm answering your question, but kind of giving a broader context of what 50% looks like. It's far more than just phone starts ringing again. It's now, how do you prime the pump? How do you have the right stock in place? How can you deliver your product? Some companies that we're talking to are going online when they never went online. You see the home delivery restaurants where the Just Eat app has gone through the roof. Restaurants that were sit down only now doing home delivery service. That's the kind of stuff. And necessity is the change agent. I mean, it's not a nice to have; it's an essential to have.
And I suppose listening to you there as well, it's that old thing of cash continues to be king, right?
Yeah.
And I suppose a lot of maybe our listeners might be feeling, what you're talking about is only for bigger companies and bigger organizations and these funds of SBCI. But again, if I could go back to this kind of small sign shop owner who, could have anything from 1 to 10 staff or 10 to 20 staff, what would you say to these guys about that?
Yeah, well, the stuff I'm talking about is for these same type folks, accessing cash at low interest rates and grace periods before you pay back. This is the same thing. So as an example, if you're a 10 people organization, you're probably turning £1 million or maybe 1.2 or 3 million, maybe down as low as 800 grand. If you've got a warehouse full of stuff coming in,
just frozen again a little bit.
Full demand. It started. Has it? Am I back there now? No.
Yeah, just jump in there again. Sorry, we lost you there for a little bit.
So
this rural Wi-Fi, Fergus.
This is it. Yeah. So you got if you get a pull into the marketplace, so demand pulls through, and your warehouse is going to empty out. But if your supply chain isn't local, as an example, like let's say you've a UK supply chain or mainland Europe or even a China supply chain, you got to make sure that's there, and you got to make sure the people that you have in your organization can deliver that, and that your courier. I mean, this sounds like I'm teaching Granny how to suck eggs. I don't mean it to be that way at all. But the next 2 or 3 weeks to plan for that uptick from zero. Some businesses right now, the phone isn't ringing at all. We work with some technology companies, and they've been off the hook trying to get remote working going. But that all dried up towards the end of last week because everyone was remote working. So now it's trickle feed until it turns back on again. Same thing. Once it turns back on again, then you get consumption in the marketplace. So let's say some strategic projects, large projects around the country, probably get turned back on. The building guys going into maybe the National Children's Hospital to kick that on. That's 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people now creating a pull. And that pulls your consumption around the corner shop, diesel, all that kind of stuff. It also puts lights, cables, plumbing, all that kind of, that's going to pull right through. So the part then is, at what point do you say, okay, well, I need funding to be able to do that, or I need to hold my breath long enough to be able to do that. And then there's the planning around how do you turn your people back on? Who comes back first? All that kind of stuff. And then how do you come back different? That's the other piece of it too. But so the funding piece, if it's talking to your bank, and like one owner last week said they went to their bank to get just a temporary overdraft extension. And why did they do that? They weren't planning on it, but if they needed it, it was there. And that's kind of the stuff, no one wants to get bogged down in debt or more of it. But if you have temporary flow needs, that's the difference between, springboarding back out of this or slow recovery out of it,
Yeah. Okay. No, that's really good advice. You know, I suppose just it's very difficult, I think, for everybody to kind of, you know, to try and figure out how their business is going to be different. And what you said there, for example, take when the schools open up, the building sites open up, they're all going to need signage around COVID, and that will give a pull into our industry, and, you know, all these different things. So people will get busy doing that. But when that goes, then again, what does the future work look like? So I think that's what our customers are probably trying to explore at the moment, you know. Now, one way to try and figure out, I suppose, what customers want is the idea now of how do you stay close to your customers in a time where everything you've been taught to do, it was go out, shake hands, meet your customer. You can't do that anymore. So what are business owners you know doing to stay close to their customers?
This is where relationships become.
Lost you. Back again, Fergus.
Back again, yeah. The unique part of this is everybody who runs a business is in the exact same state right now. You know, unless you're one of the key essential services like foods, FMCGs, medical, civil service, everyone else is in the same boat. They're struggling with the exact same challenges that you're struggling in your business. Not calling for the PO. This is the thing, is before it was I'm phoning up for an order. You know, will I put you down for 20? And now it's calling up going, how the hell are you? How are you getting on? You know, a lot of business owners have a lot of mental stuff going on at the moment, just dealing with the stress and potentially depression of this. Talking to these folks on a human level, going, hey, how are you getting on with this stuff? Now that creates a whole different engagement. Also, the conversation is, you know, what challenges? Because this is the thing: if you're solving problems for a customer, that's what it is. Selling's the name of a thing. If you solve problems, then you're a problem solver. And that's the part, is what problems and challenges do they see in their industry, and how can you get your business ready to supply them? And that's through a phone call. First, on the human level, most of them will have families that are affected by it. They'll definitely have business and they'll have employees. So there's so many angles that we're all connected on. But previously, it was quite a commercial focus. When no one's ordering, it's the best time to, you know, have a cup of coffee, have a chat. How are you getting on? How's the family getting on? We've all asked those questions now that previously we might not have asked. How are your family doing? Have you anyone caught up in this? Have you any relatives in the health service? All that kind of stuff. And then, okay, what do you see happening in your industry? They'll have the same challenges. Well, geez, when this turns on, we can't predict. So what we would really need is, and suddenly you now become, it's not just a pure commercial relationship. It's, well, look, we can. So let's say somebody says, well, I can't see your reps for 6 months if you have a rep-based organization. Okay, well, how do we do that then? Well, I need technology. All right, we'll go figure out how we get you technology to purchase, all that kind of stuff. If there's, let's say, bulk orders, and it comes from conversation. It comes from having the chat with these different owners, and just say, they'll tell you, and that's how you prepare.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's interesting. I mean, it's just so basically start talking to people is essentially what you're saying. Even though you can't talk to them the way you might be used to, do what we're doing right now. That's what we're trying to tell our customers.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting.
Simple. This is the digital needs, like, depending on how you are as a salesperson, the face-to-face, belly button to belly button conversations are great, but we're now in a different place, and they're in a different place. The world has turned upside down. That's the one thing we found when we started up in the last recession, is the way things weren't the way things were going to be. And by talking to customers, talking to people, saying, how would you like it to be? Okay, we'll do that for you. Well, I used to do purchases in dribs and drabs. Now I just want one bulk order a month. Okay, we could do that. I need a drawdown. Whatever they're saying to you, that's how they're planning. Or they might say to you, I have no clue. And then you can spitball with them a few ideas of, well, here's what we're hearing. You know, a guy like you has many, many customers, as do we. So you hear what different sectors are doing. And a guy, it's the old chopsticks and a fork, has two different solutions for the same problem, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's a, like, it's quite interesting, say, for example, you're watching, okay, so take, for example, PPE is a word. None of us knew what PPE was 6 months ago. Now we all know what PPE is, right?
Yeah.
And I've noticed, like, companies that have, like, like nothing to do with PPE, all of a sudden doing PPE, right? And I suppose there's a well everybody's running towards at the moment, right? Now, that well will run dry very quickly as well. And, because maybe stuff won't be up to standard, or maybe stuff, it won't be required. So are people better off running over to this well, or going over here where it's completely unknown and trying to figure out what that next opportunity is? And how does somebody figure out what their next opportunity is? I know, probably in a business owner, they know inside them, or they're always looking for opportunities anyway, or it doesn't just appear. But what are you hearing people saying where their next opportunity is?
Well, it's about this. Definitely towards the end of last week, people were saying, well, I'm going to get a bit of headspace next week. One thing, I'm not a huge kind of reader of news and those kinds of things, but what I am watching right now is how other economies are coming out of this. So you look at people who've been 7, 8, 10, 12, 14 weeks into this, how they've turned back on country, which parts they've allowed back from the social distancing thing. And then from that, you can see industries and how industries are taking an action to it. Like Zoom as an example. 4 months ago, I knew what Zoom was, but Zoom as a thing now is everyone's going to Zoom, or they're using Teams and Microsoft, right? But if you look at the other countries around the world that are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks farther down this than us, you'll get local information. Look at the likes of Singapore, the likes of South Korea, Japan. I'm not saying they're doing it perfectly, but you can see what they're doing, and then you see what folks are buying and consuming. I think everyone's going to go for a pint right after it, right? They're going to go down and going to buy a beer. They're going to go for maybe a meal. All those kinds of it's that whole thing. Like the guy said, tanks go and the oranges turn up. People are selling bags of oranges. But I think the emerging markets from this, and that's what I'm looking at, for half an hour a day, just looking, seeing who's coming out of this, what sectors, heavy industry, and how's that getting, how's that reacting to the whole thing? And then what can you see and do? If you were into face masks and shields and Tyvek suits in January this year and you had a warehouse full of them, you'd have made a buck, wouldn't you? You'd have made a lot of dollars. I wouldn't suggest that you predict that, but you can see how markets change. To back the next thing that's kicking, I think, is a high risk strategy. If you look at, you're an expert in your own sector, look at your own sector and how it emerges out in other arenas, other parts of the world. That's going to be an indication. I don't suggest, I'm not going to buy face masks and Tyvek suits. It's not our game. It's not your game either necessarily, but signage around COVID-19 is a big deal. The guy on the podcast spoke specifically around deep cleaning of hotels, retail environments. So if you had a commercial cleaning outlet right now, tee it up. And why tee it up? Because the phone's going to ring. People, hotels are going to need a top to bottom. Any manufacturing facility, restaurants, coffee shops, they're all going to need a deep scrub. So you'll just need bodies and materials for that. Now that's a one hit, but that's going to take 4-8 weeks.
Well, I suppose to bring it into our customers' world, that we all know possibly the schools will open up in September, so there's a lot of opportunity maybe for they're not going to let 1,000 kids go into school without signage and stuff around COVID-19. So
Correct.
Where's the opportunity for the schools when all the secondary retail opens up, the non-essential retailers, they're all going to need COVID-19 branding and signage, but they're also going to need promotion. They're going to need, they're not just going to want COVID-19, they're going to want window graphics again. They're going to want all of these things again to say, look, we're still alive. So there's that opportunity to get prepared for. And I suppose what you're saying is start looking at the industries that are going to come around first.
Yes.
And,
everybody that's essentially going to look at this can come back and lead their market. Or if they're leading, they can continue to lead. That's the opportunity that's here. Time is the thing you have now. That we, as owners, lots of stuff going on in the head, but now with more time. The thing now is, what would you do with the time? And we're advising everybody to go look and see what the emerging areas are. And some of them are doing it well and some of them are not. But see what industries are coming back on first. And like you said, if it's an education forum, the university forum, those kinds of things, at a time they're going to come back. the government has to keep the economy going. So at some point, there has to be a release into the things like the construction market. We still have, everyone's maybe to say forgot about homelessness is not the right word, but we still have to build houses for the homeless. We still have to construct the children's hospital. There's other large infrastructure projects in the country that are going to come back on, and they can be, I would think, managed to a level. Then I think the schools is a longer term, more medium term than at the start, because it's 4 or 5 months or maybe 3 or 4 months away. But the industries around construction, those kind of things, what do they need? When they go back, it's not going to be the same. So what will they need to stay safe? What will they need on site that they don't have? And each around that. So if I'm the guy in the panel van with the crew cab on it, and I'm bringing a bunch of guys to work, they're going to stop off for they have to be fed, they have to be watered. That's going to drive a level of consumption either on the site specific they're on, or the feeders into it, so the different gas stations, service halls, those kinds of things. Yeah. So again, everyone listening here, if you make loaves of bread, there's going to be money in it. If your bags of crisps, there's going to be money in it. Water, diesel, all that kind of stuff is consumption led, and it's going to turn on. That stuff's going to be quite a sharp kick. We're going to get told, like Leo did the last time there, you're going to get told on a Friday that Monday it's back to business for these particular industries. And they hire hundreds and thousands of folks, and then that drives the deli guy, the cheese guy, the bottle of water guy. That kicks all that back on. So thinking, okay, what do they need? Your product might need to be delivered slightly different. It may not be your normal distribution channel. It could be different. The ordering channel might change. So this is where I see opportunity actually, is that, okay, we now have time to implement some changes here. And then that goes all the way back in the circle, talking to your customer. What do you think they will need at the time? Yes. And how do you feed and support them? Not just feed and food, but how do you supply the product to them the way they want it? Just something as simple as a bag of coal on the weekend in the local hardware store was delivered completely different than it would have normally been in the past. So it just
fell actually in hands, did he?
Well, it's just someone put it in the back of the boot and put the lid down. There was no interaction. The payment happened all online. Typically, previously into a retail counter, you pay your thing, go out to the backyard with your receipt, and then the guy go off. Just something as simple as that's changing. So your customer is going to change, and if you're there with the solutions, I'm not a fortune teller, but I do know if you're ready and open to change, this is a good time for you.
No, I think we'll leave it on that note. Ready and open for change. The future's bright, so that's all good. Just, I suppose, one last question. I mean, everybody's probably sitting here going, "Who's that guy behind you with the rifle? What's that all about?"
No, look, this is the brand itself. We're business troubleshooters. And it's about action, execution of the action plan. And so this is just one of our graphics. We have a hero shot on the website of the force coming in to help. It gets a comment every time, someone says, "I've never seen anything like that." So, but we're a no business kind of outfit, we enjoy life too, but when it comes to business, it's serious. And right now we're in some serious shit,
Yeah. All right. Excellent. Fergus, listen, I really appreciate your time. Our customers will appreciate your time as well. We'll put a note at the end of this as to how people might be able to contact you if they want to maybe troubleshoot their own business or whatever that might be. So much appreciated. Thanks again.
All right. Thanks, Leo. Take care.
Thanks. Bye, Fergus.
Bye-bye now.